Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a literal trillion-dollar shift that's completely transforming the way we build. We're talking about circular construction and why it absolutely matters right now.
So I want you to picture something. What if the buildings of the future could actually pay for themselves and save the planet at the exact same time? Sounds like total sci-fi utopian dreaming, right? But honestly, it's a completely achievable reality. To really get why this solution is so genius, though, we kind of need to look at the sheer scale of the mess we're currently in.
Look, the construction sector's footprint is just staggering. It is insanely resource and energy intensive. Globally, we're talking about 35 to 45% of all resource consumption and up to 40% of our global energy use. Just to put that in perspective, in Europe alone, over a third of all greenhouse gas emissions and waste come from this one single industry.
But beyond just the energy it takes to keep the lights and the heat on, there is a super crucial metric we need to talk about: 20 to 50%. That huge chunk represents a building's embodied carbon. Basically, these are the invisible emissions that are permanently locked into the structure before anyone even turns a key. It's all the massive energy used to extract, manufacture, and transport the materials in the first place.
And the real tragedy here, it's the lifespan. We design buildings to last 50 to 70 years, but so often they're demolished in just 20 because they become functionally obsolete. Under our deeply entrenched linear take, make, throw model, the second that wrecking ball hits, all that precious embodied carbon, along with perfectly good materials, is just tossed straight into a landfill.
Right, so the fix is completely shifting to circular economy principles for the built environment. Think of it as a regenerative model. The whole point is to keep materials in continuous use at their highest possible intrinsic value. By designing things to be reused and repaired, we're not just saving on daily operational energy, we are actively preserving that massive chunk of embodied carbon.
And this translates into some incredibly direct benefits. First off, we drastically reduce the need to extract virgin natural resources. Second, we basically eliminate those crazy high construction waste management costs. And third, like we just said, we preserve that embodied carbon. We literally stop those new extraction emissions from ever hitting the atmosphere.
But the impact doesn't stop at the construction fence. It triggers a huge indirect economic boom. For businesses jumping on this early, it's a massive first-mover market advantage. For the broader economy, it's a green job creation engine, simply because recovering materials and changing systems requires real skilled labor. And for you and me, the everyday users, circular renovations mean much better energy performance, which equals way more comfortable living spaces and permanent savings on our monthly energy bills.
So the financial case here is undeniable. Get this, studies estimate a €5 return for every €1 invested. When governments put money into circular building renovations, they are seeing massive, rapid economic returns within just a single year. It's one of those rare times where the economic and environmental incentives line up perfectly.
Which brings us to the real twist of the whole story. If the return on investment is this high, and the environmental benefits are this obvious, why on earth aren't we doing this everywhere? Well, those rapid economic returns are currently trapped in a messy web of hidden, restrictive red tape. Let's dig into the actual roadblocks stalling this out.
Roadblock number 1, regulatory barriers. Our current laws were quite literally built for a linear world. Waste taxation just isn't strict enough, so it's still way too cheap to just throw stuff away. Plus, outdated quality standards actually make it legally risky for builders to use secondary materials instead of brand new, virgin ones.
Then we hit the second hurdle, which is technical. Honestly, right now, a lot of architects and designers are flying completely blind. Because the linear method is so normalized, there's a huge lack of standard frameworks, metrics, or KPIs to actually measure the circularity of a project. And hey, if you can't measure it, you really can't design for it. The design tools out there are limited, making the whole integration of recycled materials feel like a giant guessing game.
Roadblock 3 is financial. Now, even though the long-term returns are fantastic, circular projects often need a lot of upfront cash for R&D, figuring out reverse logistics, and rigorously testing those reclaimed materials. Real estate investors are traditionally wired to expect fast, short-term returns. So when they're faced with the longer paybacks of a circular project, they often get cold feet. The access to that patient, long-term funding just isn't quite there yet.
And finally, we have social and cultural barriers. There is this deeply entrenched, linear mindset across the entire supply chain. Overcoming that hesitation takes total collaboration, from the top levels of government right down to the individual design teams. We have to actively push against widespread industry resistance.
But the good news is, we already have the sledgehammers we need to bust through all these roadblocks. We just have to use them. Breaking this paradigm takes three main drivers. First, technological tools, like Building Information Modeling, or BIM. This basically creates a digital material passport, so we know exactly how to safely deconstruct a building 50 years from now. Second, policy incentives, like making circular criteria mandatory for public projects. And third, financial drivers, like green taxes that penalize extracting virgin resources and actually remove the tax on reclaimed materials.
Look, the tools are in our hands, the financial metrics are totally proven, and the environmental necessity is absolute. So I'm going to leave you with a thought to chew on next time you walk around your neighborhood. What will it take to finally break the linear paradigm in your own city's building codes? Because it is definitely time to demand a built environment that doesn't just consume our future, but actively constructs a better one. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep questioning, and we'll see you next time.